Well, now that the voice has been resoundingly defeated, will there be an impact on Indigenous land claims around the country? Now, you remember in the run-up to the voice, we frequently spoke to Tony Seabrook, president of the Pastoralists and Graziers Association of Western Australia. And this was, of course, this insane West Australia Cultural Heritage Act that was, if you dug up a hole in your back garden, you'd have to get some kind of Indigenous authority. Well, people of WA said no to that, and the people of Australia said no to that. But have they? Joining us now is Tony Seabrook. Great to see you again, Tony. Hope all is well on the farm.
Well enough, Ryan. Look, mate, a bit hard to follow on from what you've just said, but look, thanks for saying that. It absolutely needed to be said. And
Thanks,
look,
Tony.
simply referring back to the referendum, when you think of the unbelievable pressure brought by these woke groups, the left-wing Labor Party, the ABC, all the company directors, all the municipalities, all the sporting clubs, all the people promoting the woke side of the argument, they got 40%. If it had been left to the judgment of ordinary Australians without all the virtue signalling and all the pressure that was put upon them, it probably would have only got 20%.
Yeah, I agree.
So, wokeism is alive and well. But look, back to the ACH, it's not dead yet. The Act is still in play. It's gone through the Parliament of West Australia. It now needs the ascension of the state governor before that 1921 Act that we've been suffering under is actually dead and buried. Could have been done months ago. It still hasn't happened yet, but it's about to, I believe.
James.
Tony, one of the things that we've been seeing around the country since the voice referendum went down and the Aboriginal groups have ended their silence on that is a real push now again to resurrect an awful lot of the elements of this, whether it is treaties, keeping that going, or also, as we're seeing in Victoria, they're calling it redress for land and air and waters taken from Indigenous people. How concerned are you that in the wake of the no victory, that the people who are concerned about this then move on to the next thing, and a lot of this stuff winds up coming in anyway by stealth because the news cycle has moved on, the campaign has moved on?
I'd say absolutely deadly concerned, really, really concerned. This little group of people, the inner city elites that were driving in the beginning, have not let it go. Watch ABC television, they just cannot let it go. They can't realise the damage they're doing. And I'm quite certain that those same groups will continue to undermine and work hard to achieve the divisive result that they failed to achieve in the referendum. It's not dead and gone. The attitudes are still there and just as dangerous as they were before.
Rita.
Tony, we had 2 in 3 West Australians vote no. It was emphatic. How much did those Aboriginal heritage laws, the state-based laws, play a part in the people's vote?
I think it was absolutely huge. Now, we had a window into the future. We saw exactly where this could take us to. And to have our Prime Minister stand up and say it's a tiny little thing, it makes no difference. Listen to the Mr Mayos of the world. Listen to the radicals that were just waiting to get their hands on this. They were going to create unbelievable mayhem. And we nearly let it through, or the government tried to push it through. And look, it's there. The impact on agricultural lands and anyone that owned freehold land in the ACH was huge. And it was a window into the future.
So what's going to happen in WA, Tony, with, are they going to start... We're seeing around the different states different reactions. So Anastasia Palaszczuk has said, OK, treaty's dead and buried. She's read the room correctly. Yet here in New South Wales, this clown Minns seems to think that he can press ahead with a treaty. What's the future like under your Roger Cook? What's it look like?
Look, they're bloodied. They're absolutely bloodied. But why did it take them nearly 3 months to do something they could have done in a week? All they needed to do was simply say that we pass through Parliament the rescinding of that Act, revert back to the 1972 Act, then put in place the amendments that might need to be made and have been made. But they tied the amendments to actually repealing the Act. It was churlish. I think that the loss of the referendum will probably give them a bit of food for thought. But look, it's unrelenting. The left never give up. They just keep on pressing and pressing and pressing, and ultimately to the detriment of the people they're supposedly trying to help. That's the shame of it.
James.
And we're hearing increasing calls here, and I think this is, something that we really need to have an audit, first of all, of the Yes campaign and what they wound up spending, because we know that this whole thing cost about $450 million now.
Go further,
it may be north of that money that could have been used to actually help people on the ground rather than activists, but also just of Indigenous spending in general. I mean, it seems to me that you get an awful lot of money flowing into the top of this funnel, but very little seems to drip out onto the communities where it's needed.
Well, look, we have the National Indigenous Australians Agency in Canberra, 1,400 people and a budget of $4.5 billion. Shakespeare once said, for all the good that thou hast done, get thee gone from here. It's not getting down to where it needs to.
How can it? What are you seeing in WA? What are you seeing in WA?
Look, you've got communities up in the Kimberley, and there are dozens and dozens of them. They live on welfare. They don't work. Water, power, electricity, nursing, education, policing, it all needs to be supplied. It's crucial that these communities join the rest of us. Regional West Australia, especially the pastoral industry, is crying out for labour, absolutely crying out for it. We're using backpackers on pastoral properties. These Indigenous kids, they ought not to be locked up in Perth. They need to be working in proper jobs. And whether it's a stockman, electrician, a mechanic, somehow or another, we need to get those kids out of those communities, get them into an apprenticeship and get them into mainstream Australia. Because at the moment, all you're seeing is drugs, dysfunction, alcoholism. Then the kids are chucked in jail, sent down to Perth, and then you get deaths in custody and all the misery that goes with that. We're making an absolute muck of this, and whether it is the $38 billion that we spend, $100 million a day or not, it's just not achieving the results. We desperately need either an audit or a Royal Commission to sort this out. And look, just on the back of what you just said, that I think that the Prime Minister of Australia was in a situation where he well might have resigned over what happened. The ownership of this issue that he had, the time that he wasted, the amount of capital in time as well as money, he made a complete muck of it. He got it completely wrong, and he ought to consider his position.
Here. Should resign 100%, Rita.
No, I'm loving the commentary we are getting from. I want you to be on my personal advisory body because you are just talking common sense, which is not that common anymore. What can we expect to see in WA? Because like you said, WA has been at the forefront of this agenda in a way. They've seen what the impact can be. And we're not talking just about with those Aboriginal heritage laws, large land holdings, graziers and miners. We're talking about, 1,100 square metres. So pretty much every property owner was impacted.
Well, what you can see is that myself, the PGA, and those thinking people in our community, we will stand here. We are watching this government with a microscope. If they falter, if they think they're going to get away with what they did before, we will be standing there ready to clobber them at every opportunity. Now, we've got the state government here. Alcoa, a big refinery in Kwinana, processing works there, are planning to shut down that process in Canberra, in Kwinana. There's heaps of jobs there going to be lost, and the government doesn't get it. Now, we've got work health and safety regulations, manslaughter laws. We've got so much going against anyone that wants to have a crack. Anyone that wants to run a business is taking a huge risk. I can well see why a lot of businesses are simply saying it's too dangerous for us to invest more capital. And now we've got the IR laws coming out of Canberra. This is stupidity. This means that young kids aren't going to get a job, and yet somehow or another the left just doesn't get it.
You're 100% correct. The IR laws, we need to take a close look at those as well, Tony. And you keep that microscope there on the lefties in WA. And any time, Tony, you're straight on this show to expose what they're up to, as you do so brilliantly. Thank you, Tony. Right. Thanks, Tony Seabrook from the Pastoral and Graziers Association there in WA.